Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, but I want a more vibrant good morning because I see a lot of vibrant people in front of me, and I know this promises to be an exciting event. So once again, good morning, everybody. Do we need another coffee break or more breakfast? Let's put some energy into this. So good morning, everyone. Okay, that's better. I'll take that. So welcome to the event today. My name is Adebola Williams. I will be your host slash moderator for today. Basically assisting Ediri in everything that she's not able to do today. So to start our welcome address and recognition of the special dignitaries that we have here, I would like to call Ediri Ose Idiali, who is the Executive Director and CEO of the Advertisers Association of Nigeria, ADVAN. Thank you. Please give her a warm round of applause.
Thank you, Debola. Appreciate the advisor to the president on ease of doing business, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. A round of applause for her. Thank you for being here. I'd also like to recognize and appreciate the CEO and registrar of APCON. Thank you, Dr. Liko Fadolapo, for being here. Mr. Benga Fajemiroku is the SA to the DG of NAFDAC. He's here as well. A round of applause for him. And Mrs. Chioma Dozier is the Deputy Director NAFDAC. She's also here as well. A round of applause for her. I would like to also appreciate, and this is not an oversight, the President and the Executive Council members of ADVAN for putting this together. Thank you very much for doing this. Mr. Osamede Ubame, the President of ADVAN. Executive Council members present. Mrs. Wandu Ajene is here. She's the first Vice President. Our Director of Publicity. Thank you. I appreciate all the heads of advertising sectorial bodies that are here present. And just to open this, just to open the meeting by saying, or open the forum by saying, ADVAN is a body of advertisers. And by advertisers, we mean organizations that engage in high-level marketing communications in Nigeria. We are the brands. And because we are the brands and because we make use of marketing communications to promote our goods and services, we believe it's our duty to ensure that we support the development of the industry. And one of the ways we seek to do that is to open dialogue between advertisers and their relevant regulatory institutions to ensure that regulation is seamless, is effective, and that advertisers, which are the recipients of these regulations, also have a say or a part of how these policies are formulated, and it calls or it stems for better execution when the regulated is part of the process. The conversations today is a platform, creating a platform where the regulators and their constituents, their stakeholders can dialogue and move the industry and the economy forward with effective regulation. So again, on behalf of the Executive Council, members of ADVAN, and all the members, I say thank you for being here, and let's look forward to robust conversations today. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Idiri, for that short speech. One of the things we have said today was we know everyone here is quite busy. So we'll try and make sure that we keep it as short, simple, and impactful as possible. The next item on our agenda is a speech by the ADVAN president who is going to address us. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Osamede Uwubanwem. Forgive me, please, who is the president of the Advertisers Association of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to start by saying welcome to everybody and thanks for honoring our invitation. I'm going to, all existing protocols is observed. I will just say briefly, as the jury has said. So 2 things I want to just put across in my opening address is, what is ADVAN? So for us and for everybody in this room, I want you to understand that ADVAN is not the marketing director, it's not the people in the marketing team. It's the owners of the brand, the shareholders at home. So we stand and we fight on behalf of them. Conversations we have is because we know that we are in trust of their brands they love and brands they put money behind. So for us in ADVAN, is the interest of the shareholders, is the interest of the owners that is upmost in our hearts. The second piece is this industry dialogue is not the first, because a lot of people have been asking me questions, even had the questions outside about the industry dialogue. I think this is the third in the series. For ADVAN, as Idiri has said, so we bring people together to have conversations. We always believe in talking. We believe when people discuss, everything goes smooth and things go forward and things move in a better direction. So I want to say thank you for coming, and please open your hearts and engage. Your regulators are here. And this is not you trying to get a sign off on an advert. This is you having conversations. This is you being open. And this is you giving them feedback on things you feel can be done better or things you feel they should take a second look at. So once again, thanks for coming and enjoy your day.
So thank you very much for keeping it short and sweet. So we'll go to the main event today, and we would have the pleasure of hearing from Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. But just as a preamble before she comes up, according to the World Bank, Nigeria ranks 131st out of 190 countries when it comes to ease of doing business. This is according to the report in 2020, and this is actually a step up from the 149 or so position which we were in before. Now there are a couple of indexes that are used when you're talking about ease of doing business in a country, and amongst others, which include stable power supply, availability of raw materials, availability of labor, and all of that. One of the key index that is being considered is good government policy, and that is what we're here to discuss today. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Jumoke Oduwole. A round of applause for her, please. Dr. Jumoke is the special advisor to the president on the ease of doing business in the office of the vice president. She's also the executive secretary of the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, chaired by His Excellency Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. And here policies aimed at supporting small and medium-sized enterprises across various sectors of the economy are facilitated to make Nigeria a progressively easier place to do business. Dr. Oduwole and her team have collaborated relentlessly with all arms and level of the government, as well as the private sector. They've done this to deliver critical homegrown reforms over the last 6 years, such as the reenactment of the Companies and Allied Matters Act 2020 and the inaugural subnational ease of doing business baseline survey for all 36 states of the Federation, including the Federal Capital Territory. Prior to her career in civil service, Dr. Oduwole was a senior lecturer at the University of Lagos, with experience in areas of international economic law. She joined academia after a career in investment and corporate banking at FCMB Capital Market, a division of First City Monument Bank PLC and Guarantee Trust Bank PLC. Dr. Oduwole serves as a trustee on a number of boards, including the Mandela Institute for Development Studies and All Progressive Congress Professional Forum. In 2020, she was one of the 15 women leaders actually, with high potential that formed the inaugural cohort of the Amuje Initiative of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. From 2013 to 2015, Professor Oduwole was Prince Claus Chair holder in Development and Equity at the International Institute of Social Studies, The Hague, in honor of the late Prince Claus of the Netherlands. She holds a bachelor's degree in law from the University of Lagos and an LLM from Cambridge University, UK, where she was a DFID Cambridge Commonwealth Trust scholar. She also holds a master's degree in international legal studies and has a doctorate in international trade and development from Stanford Law School, USA. Dr. Oduwole is passionate about development issues in Africa and has consistently mentored youths in various capacities over 20 years. She's an avid street photographer and has held 2 exhibitions in the Netherlands and 1 in Lagos. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Oduwole as she delivers her keynote on the role of government regulations in the ease of doing business in Nigeria. We can do better than that. We can do better than that. She's made out time to come and speak with us, so I believe we can do better than that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Morning. Good morning, everybody. It is indeed my pleasure to join you all, the board and members and stakeholders, today at this industry dialogue convened by the Advertisers Association of Nigeria, ADVAN. The president, Mr. Osamede Erubamwen, your executive board members, and your first vice president, Mrs. Wandu Ajene, an excellent professional who has actively stood by me in the course of this national assignment and has become a personal friend. Thank you, Wandu. Thanks to your tenacious executive secretary, Mrs. Adiri Osaidiali. Where is she? She's there, really tenacious, with Wandu, her partner, for the kind invitation to deliver this keynote and for her insistence that I be here today. I was telling her the first thing I said to her when I walked in was that I'm not a diva. It's just often difficult for someone who works in Abuja and lives in Lagos to arrange her week to be here on a Wednesday morning. So thank you. I'm glad it all worked out in the end. It is gratifying to note that in the last 3 decades, since its establishment in 1992, with top 100 companies in Nigeria as members, representing over 200 leading brands, ADVAN has distinguished itself as a worthy platform for the advancement of marketing and communications in the country. I'm told that your footprint extends beyond the shores of Nigeria, with membership and service on the Executive Council of the highly prestigious World Federation of Advertisers, a body of global brands and marketing associations in over 60 countries across the world, as well as your recent entry into the Global Alliance for Responsible Marketing, an alliance of brands and online media platforms globally tasked with the mandate of sanitizing online media content and platforms. Let me seize this opportunity to thank you for being strong ambassadors of Nigeria on the global stage. And I'll come back to this point a bit later on. Well, naturally, ADVAN is the live wire of advertising industry in Nigeria, with an annual marketing spend of over 200 billion. In fact, a cursory look at your membership role shows that the association boasts of some of Nigeria's most socially responsible organizations, accounting for a significant share of Nigeria's capital market. Indeed, at least 6 ADVAN members were recently celebrated. You may not like it, but we like it, by the FIRS as being as being among the top 20 taxpayers in Nigeria. Clap for yourselves. No one likes to pay tax, but thank you. Being a powerful, cross-cutting lobby group which interfaces with multiple government regulators across such sectors as financial services, fast-moving consumer goods, energy, communications, transport and telecommunications, hospitality, pharmaceuticals, to name a few. It therefore comes as no surprise that the theme for this dialogue is the role of government regulations in ease of doing business in Nigeria. Indeed, for businesses operating in Nigeria, the primary interface with government at all arms and levels in the course of your day-to-day operations is necessarily the industry regulator. Today, the prevalent view among stakeholders is that many, if not most Nigerian regulators see themselves as police men or women of businesses rather than facilitators. We have been told by the private sector across the board that Nigerian regulators tend to default to a strict or conservative interpretation or position that a business's desired activities are not allowed, except where expressly permitted. And as a result, innovation is stifled, and many businesses, particularly our micro, small, and medium-sized players, are of interacting with regulators. Furthermore, delays in time of processing, sweeping powers, sudden changes in requirements and regulations without adequate stakeholder engagement, and seemingly arbitrary fines, as well as some cases of extortion and corruption, have in general given Nigerian regulatory bodies a poor reputation over the years. Today, many regulators are seen as competitors or adversarial revenue collectors by their stakeholders. And in many cases, regulators are also believed to have overreached the powers of their enabling legislations in terms of their powers and the scope of their activities. It is for these reasons that the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, the PEBEC, was established by Mr. President in July of 2016 with a dual mandate to remove bureaucratic constraints to doing business in Nigeria, as well as to improve the prevalent negative perceptions about the Nigerian business environment. The PEBEC is chaired by His Excellency the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, and consists of 13 honorable ministers, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, the Head of the Civil Service, the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. The Council is also privileged to enjoy amongst its membership high-level representation from the National Assembly and the Judiciary, as well as state governments from Lagos and Kano representing, local governments, Abuja Municipal Area Council representing, and the private sector. The Council's Secretariat implements its mandate with a singular goal of making Nigeria a progressively easier place to start and grow a business. To facilitate this systemic change, in May 2017, the first executive order of this administration, Executive Order 001, on promoting transparency and efficiency in the business environment, was signed by the then acting president. The order demonstrates the full executive backing and political capital deployed by the friendlier environment for businesses by seeking to entrench measures and strategies aimed at promoting transparency and efficiency within the public service. The EO1 mandates ministries, departments, and agencies, all ministries, departments, and agencies, to publish a complete list of all their requirements or conditions for obtaining products, processes, permits, and to develop service level agreements. It requires MDAs to maintain at least two modes of communication with private sector. We have continued to monitor the compliance of about 55 PEBEC priority MDAs with this order, with results published in our periodic EO1 compliance reports, which are publicly available on our website, along with our annual reports and other empirical surveys. Furthermore, since its inception, the PEBEC Secretariat has actively engaged and collaborated with all arms and levels of government and a wide representation of the private sector to identify areas for reforms from ideation to execution and verification, using a funnel system to distill the most pressing priorities and driving reforms through our homegrown, internationally recognized national action plans. These are 60-day accelerators designed to deliver agreed reforms in a transparent and measurable manner. The latest and seventh accelerator, NAP 7.0, was undertaken in Q1 of this year and focused on ports trade reforms for the agribusiness sector, as well as automation and other regulatory reforms. As a result, over the past 6 years, the PEBEC has introduced reforms aimed at addressing some of the challenges faced by MSMEs in a sustainable manner, with some modest but objective results to show for it. With the implementation of over 160 reforms, Nigeria moved an aggregate of 39 places in the World Bank's flagship Doing Business Index in the last 3 years of its release, and was twice recognized as a global top 10 reformer within that period, one of only 2 African countries to make this highly prestigious list in 2019. I was so scared you weren't going to clap. Thank you. It really was a lot of work, and I'm glad that I'm here with advertisers and some of your agencies, because the problem with the work is that the traction is not immediately felt because it's a systemic intervention. During the course of this intervention, Nigeria also recorded unprecedented improvement in the subnational level at the World Bank's country-focused report in 2018. And the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Report recognized Nigeria's business environment as one of the most entrepreneurial in the world and highlighted Nigeria's improved competitiveness in the enabling business environment that same year. The traction we have achieved so far is as a result of some tangible regulatory reforms implemented with ministries, departments, and agencies prioritized for their public-facing responsibilities. Yet we are not unaware of the manifold challenges in this area which still persist. The reform journey is clearly a marathon, not a sprint. In July 2018, the PEBEC approved a pilot regulatory reform program as an outcome of the 5th Presidential Quarterly Business Forum hosted by His Excellency the Vice President in September 2017, at which private sector feedback firmly highlighted some of the regulatory hurdles and the costs associated with regulatory compliance for businesses already highlighted above. The pilot regulatory program commenced with a list of distilled reforms based on stakeholder engagement, working with 2 leading MDAs, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration, NAFDAC, I'm glad to see you're in the room, and the National Insurance Commission, NICOM. The agencies were selected empirically based on stakeholder feedback from surveys and interactive sessions. However, despite these targeted reforms and NAPs, private sector feedback in the form of direct reports to the PEBEC Secretariat, submissions to our report.gov.ng feedback portal, as well as anecdotal commentary on social media and the pages of newspapers, continued to articulate something different. it appeared that in addition to the known formal taxes, levies, and charges, MSMEs bear multiple unquantified costs, both official and unofficial, associated with regulatory compliance from several government agencies, which when taken cumulatively, significantly impact the business's bottom line, hindering their ability to plow back such revenue into productive ventures. Thus, the PEBEC commissioned an empirical study around the formal and informal regulatory cost of compliance for MSMEs with a view to identifying and targeting successful reforms towards boosting the productivity of these businesses, thereby fostering the creation of jobs for millions of Nigerians and increased GDP. The empirical evidence from the survey confirms earlier anecdotal feedback by showing that 51% of MSMEs paid unofficial fees for regulatory services. The survey equally revealed that actual compliance cost was higher than what was officially stated, while process timelines overshot timelines published. It was also established that there was a huge communication gap between regulators and MSMEs. The survey report proposed specific reform interventions aimed at minimizing the regulatory cost for compliance, including consolidation and harmonization of taxes and automation of regulatory processes. Other recommendations include the strengthening of MDA feedback mechanisms and improving access to regulatory information on fees, processes, and timelines. Many of these reforms were already ongoing and are being escalated within the MDAs with varying degrees of success. At the PEBEC, over the years has shown that we must constantly measure and monitor improvements and come back to private sector repeatedly because what gets measured gets done. We have also recognized the need to continue to build the capacity of government agencies to deliver and sustain regulatory improvements on an ongoing basis. Another key learning has been the need for strong performance management, which is critical to operationalizing reforms and for agencies to ensure that appropriate consequence management is applied for both performing and erring public officials. Our collaboration with private sector continues to make it possible for us to know where the shoe pinches and creates a constant flow of ideas for pragmatic intervention. Now, bringing this all home to today's dialogue, by our assessment, the advertising industry in Nigeria is regulated by a combination of federal laws, states, and possibly local government laws, and subsidiary legislations, including regulations and guidelines. And there are at least 5 regulatory agencies involved in regulating advertising. Foremost among which is the Advertising Practitioners Council of Nigeria, APCON, and I'm delighted to see that the Registrar CEO, Dr. Olaleko Fadolapo, is here in person. Thank you very much. It is such commitment that makes stakeholder engagements meaningful. Other regulatory bodies include the National Broadcasting Commission, the National Communications Commission, NAFDAC, also here in person, very well represented. Thank you very much. And in Lagos State, the Lagos State Signage and Advertising Agency, and possibly others. We have recently been intimated of some specific and more general regulatory challenges that ADVAN members are currently experiencing, including delays in obtaining regulatory approvals from some agencies, and perhaps even more disturbing to us at the PEBEC is that the inference of regulatory interference in the day-to-day operations by the imposition of board regulatory obligations on advertisers. Of course, there are always 2 sides to every story. And in this instance, perhaps even 3 sides, as the advertising agencies will no doubt have their own perspectives on this issue. I will therefore be looking forward to a candid and robust dialogue today, as well as engaging with the relevant government MDAs with a view to addressing your concerns as much as possible. On January 20th, 1961, John F. Kennedy took an oath of office to become the 35th President of the United States of America. In his inaugural address, Kennedy called on all Americans to commit themselves to service and sacrifice. He challenged and inspired Americans to see the importance of civic action and public service with historic words, and I quote, "And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country," end of quote. Borrowing from the above, I have an ask of my own, and I'm sure many of you didn't see this coming. In the course of my 5 years, 7 years actually, 7 years of working in the public sector, in the presidency, and we're actually approaching the 6th anniversary of the PEBEC, the issue of strategic communications and perception management has been one that we have grappled with and continue to grapple with. Government can learn a lot from ADVAN members. We also need your support. The over 160 business climate reforms implemented over the last 6 years are a case in point. I'm sure many of you are unaware, and some of you may not even have known about the PEBEC at all before this morning. However, it would be remiss of me not to seize this opportunity to specially acknowledge some of your members and other businesses who has given us more than money. You've given us your expertise and your support. First Bank, Stanbic IBTC, EcoBank, Oando, and more, many more over the last 6 years, as well as individuals, Connect Marketing, and a number of other advertising agencies. Your gracious support has provided us with wings to amplify our message to some extent in the past. I personally have been very, very supported in my foray into public service by some of your members, and I'd like to publicly thank them for that. But if it is one thing that I've learned, it's that collaboration works. So like an Oliver Twist, we would like more support from ADVAN members, even as we commit to supporting you with the reforms, which is our job to deliver. We'd like to learn more about communicating effectively, and we'd like to communicate effectively with our stakeholders and with our investors. I enjoin you to continue to be good ambassadors of Nigeria by using your influence to support our communication objectives in this area. In conclusion, despite the progress that has been recorded, there's still a lot of groundwork to cover in our efforts at improving the regulatory environment. It's for this reason that I want to especially acknowledge ADVAN's foresight in convening this event, and I'm pleased that the industry regulators are well represented here today. We will listen without being defensive, and we will deliver the reforms that will enable your businesses to thrive. I'm confident that this dialogue will contribute significantly to the smoothing of any rough edges in the relationships between regulators and the advertising community going forward. Please be rest assured that the federal government's commitment to supporting the ecosystem is real. We invite you to continue to channel your feedback to us. Kindly forward your feedback. You can directly to the Secretariat or through our reportgov.ng portal. I thank you for your kind attention, and I look forward to a productive dialogue. Good morning.
After such a very insightful keynote speech, I believe that she deserves a more resounding round of applause. I don't know about you guys. I personally have learned one or two things. She's even answered one of my questions even before I had the opportunity to. But before I continue, I would like to recognize the Deputy Director Dayo Shobayo, who is representing the Ministry of Commerce, Industry, and Cooperatives. Thank you very much. I would also like to recognize Dr. Yemisi Bambushe, who is representing the chairman of the Broadcasting Organizations of Nigeria. Thank you very much for attending. So I believe that while Dr. Jumoke was giving her keynote, we have a lot of questions that we want to ask, and we would be passing the microphone around. We also will be passing the microphone around. So if you have questions, she's still here with us, and she's very happy to provide clarity, give more insights, and answer your questions. Any hands? Okay. Here, please.
Thank you very much. I just want to say a big thank you, and my notes have a lot of things to say, but I'll just start by first acknowledging the fact that you said a lot of nice things about ADVAN, and we are very, very happy, and we appreciate all your nice words. My take would be, in terms of collaborating with your office, you know what we do, and like you said, most of these things you spoke about were new to me, and I mean, I make both to say, I watch the news every day, and it's my job to always be current. But I was blown out when I saw a lot of things. So, how do we collaborate with you guys? That's just my question. We are ready. If you need a team, we would say to you here and now, we'll have guys are ready to volunteer and make sure we sing and shout this message, because it's a nice one. So, you moved 39 places globally. To move a spot on that index is a lot of work. So well done. Well done. 39 is a good number. So how do we collaborate with you? That's just my take to you right now. Thank you very much.
Okay, do you want to take all the questions at once? Okay, anybody else has a question?
Thank you very much. And thank you for the well-presented paper, Dr. Jumoke. My question actually centers around what the president just said, which is, I mean, he already said that moving 39 steps is very significant, knowing very well won't take want to move one step. But I want to believe that in spite of all that the presidency is doing, in spite of what we at NAFDAC are actually doing as well to promote the ease of doing business, it seems as if it is not well appreciated. It seems as if it's not well reckoned with. And I don't know if there are, at this point, new strategies and new ways of looking at it in a way that it can further translate into ease of doing business. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, there's a hand there.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Wolf Caesar. I work for Friesland Campina. Dr. Jumoke, thank you very much. A friend of yours said to say hello to you from Friesland Campina. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. I did enjoy your keynote speech. I thought it was very good. Opened my eyes to a lot of things, the good progress you're making. But what struck me was the council is only made up of government. And if we're supposed to be improving the ease of doing business, I was expecting a bit more representation of business on the council, because you did talk about perception management, and a lot of the indices are based on perceptions. Isn't it about time that the council was relooked at so that the perceptions around these improvements can become a lot more highlighted for all to see? Thank you.
That's a very, very good question. Do we have any other person who wants to ask a question? Okay.
All right. Doc, that was a good paper. Well appreciated. Arif Atal Deshli is my name. Speaking for the industry, I'm sure it's not too different from what people have expressed. Such a huge level of reform. And for us, we're quite a lot of motion but no movement. The perception is still there. I am not sure that forum or fora for industry practitioner to interact with your office. That will have helped a lot because what we see are what you have. Kama, all those, and when you want to do some of these things, you go back to those books. I do not also know whether there are publications that can be accessed easily or at the disposal of the industry practitioner, so that it doesn't remain in the books. We do not know whether it's also possible to have at least a periodic forum, maybe with the CEOs of private sector. Let us know what kind of effort and what has it translated to in terms of how we do our business. You still have the same form of fora, you still have the same complaint from managers when they come back, you still have the same Nigerian factor. So without overstressing this, we will appreciate if all this effort can come face to face with the industry practitioner. But a very good paper. Thank you.
I think we still have space for one or two more questions. Anybody? From the back? Okay, so I'll ask a little question of my own, and it's with regards SMEs, given the role that they play in the economy, the fact that they are the future, and that currently the regulations and the policies we have and the environment basically does not support them to thrive and flourish. What is your organization doing to better support them, create a more friendly environment, and give them the opportunity to be able to grow into much bigger organizations and contribute better to the economy?
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for those well thought through questions. So, starting with the question from the president, really grateful for, first of all, your appreciation of the work that has gone on over the last 6 years and offering ADVAN as a collaborator, because truly collaboration works. So, some of your members do know about the PEBEC and have supported us in the past. There are a number of ways that private sector has supported the PEBEC intervention. So we've had technical expertise in the secretariat embeds. In the first administration, we had a consultant from KPMG embedded for about 2 years. We had 2 from Deloitte for about 18 months. We had a partner level resource from Bamwani Godalu for 3 years. We had somebody from Procter & Gamble on our ports and trade entry and exit of goods intervention for 2 years. So that's one way. We've also had shorter interventions of expertise, people coming alongside to partner on particular projects to solve bottlenecks. So there's a technical expertise. In this instance, so there are 2 things here. ADVAN, as businesses yourselves, which is cross-cutting. There are a number of industries you play in. So the feedback on bottlenecks across sectors coming in a structured manner, not just anecdotal noise. So coming in white papers or just well articulated, and dialogue such as this fora that puts the specificity on the issues. It's very difficult for government to prioritize on behalf of private sector because there's a broad range of problems and everybody is sort of talking. Sometimes it seems like those that scream the loudest get the most attention, but it's not actually the case. It's just that in order to prioritize reforms, you need partners that would sit down and break it down because you are the sector experts. So people that would come in not just for their own businesses, but for systemic intervention. Then when it comes to why we're here today in terms of as advertisers and as people that are very brand conscious, perception management, disaster management, areas like that, the government definitely is no expert in this area and can benefit from a lot of technical expertise and support. Strategic comms has been something that has defied at least me personally. I speak very often. We put things out in the papers, and here is the president of ADVAN not even knowing a thing about PEBEC. That means it's been a big failure, and that's been 6 years of work. So definitely helping with a strategy comes a strategy and the implementation of that would be really welcome, especially as the administration comes to an end, winds down. The last thing we want, and one of the questions I get asked the most is about sustainability. How do we make these reforms sustainable? And I say that the way to make them sustainable is to entrench them in the hearts and minds of the private sector, such that the private sector continues to ask for good governance and continues to make sure that the so that's, I have a lot more, but yes, thank you for that question. Dr. Fajamiroku, NAFDAC, how do we amplify this message? So it's been challenging in amplifying. We have two audiences at the PEBEC that we've identified. We have our internal audience, which is public and civil servants. Our internal audience is also divided into the top hierarchy, political, the presidency, the ministers, and then we have the heads of agencies, we have the boots on the ground. How do you get the reforms to trickle down? How do you keep the attention and the concentration of the reform champions, and how do they get supported within their agencies to move these reform interventions? I've found from experience that when we have a reform-minded head of agency, it's easier. There's more attention being given to reforms, and ease of doing business is prioritized. And when a regulator or an agency head understands their job is to facilitate for the businesses in that sector and really should be measured by the degree to which their sector is thriving, that becomes a lot easier to work with such a person. But when you have colleagues who may be less inclined and some that are outrightly recalcitrant, then it becomes consistently difficult to move reforms along. I mean, change management, or should I say transformation, is something that private sector knows well about also. Even in an organization, a transformation project is never easy, and it takes a lot of consistency, especially to change the orientation mentally. So for amplification of the message, we continue to speak, we continue to track and document what is being done. So with our compliance reports and with our annual reports, you have the agencies that are doing well documented, and those that are lagging behind or disconnected, also well documented. Because we don't have enough consequence management tools at our disposal, both to punish and to reward, which is one of the biggest lessons that private sector can probably give government, the agility to respond to officers and to behavior, the tools that private sector had to hire and fire, to promote, to give increased remuneration, and not tools that are readily available in a public sector space. So you're trying to reform in a manner without sufficient breadth of the tools, and it's a systemic problem down to civil service rules and even down to the constitution, if you want to think about really moving the needle exponentially. But having said that, it's not without hope. It's not like there are not tools available. It's not like we've not found innovative and creative ways. In fact, this team was we've just gone into partnership with MIT in Boston, because they identified this project as an innovative project globally in governance reform. So the Gov Lab of MIT actually sort of approached us and said, "Would you work with us?" and use PEBEC as a case study. So globally, it's a problem moving change in government. We continue to look for innovative ways, including partnering with private sector to deliver. Chris, thank you for the comments, and warm regards back. Private sector is actually represented on the council. Mr. Dotun Suleiman is a private sector representative on the council. The council is not a very big one because it's not one of the, it's not, so the council is basically a working group. It works with a traffic light system. It's not one where you say, oh, the minutes of the meeting, and it's really an action-oriented council. It's either what is being delivered, is it stalled, is it going, is it where are things are? So it's a working group that is basically internal to government, because the project itself is actually about how to change efficiency and transparency in public service delivery, which of course will then would readily appreciate. Now, there is another council called the Competitiveness Council, which has a huge number of private sector on it. A lot of your members are on it, and has a lot of subcommittees, and it's huge. And they've done a number of projects like right of way access for broadband, and a number of things. So that's a different sort of configuration. But this one is basically a working group, but there is private sector representation on it. And we do a lot of work as a secretariat with private sector on a daily basis. Mr. Additional perception versus reality. Our website actually has all the information. There's a lot more that I couldn't even put into the 20 minutes that I was asked to speak for. We have a whole subnational intervention. We work with all state governments and the FCT on delivering ease of doing business reforms, cascading it all across the country, because all your businesses don't work at the federal level. You're all domiciled in one state or another, or across multiple states. So that's an intervention that has been going really well. We also work with the judiciary. We have small claims court intervention. About 7 states now have small claims courts. So the project is actually quite big. I just tried to cram what I felt would be most relevant to you. But please visit our website, businessmadeeasy.ng, and you'll be able to download and go through and see a lot of our, and we try to update it as much as possible as things are moving. So in terms of what our compare just asked about MSMEs, so the entire project is tailored to delivering reforms for MSMEs. So the top 100 businesses in Nigeria are not actually our target audience. So maybe that's why you don't even know about the PEBEC. So it's targeted at micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. It's a systemic intervention to bring transparency and efficiency, because most of you have access to power, you have access to heads of agencies, regulators, ministers, the presidency, state governors, but MSMEs don't. So this project is actually to deliver systemic intervention right from incorporation of a business, that we move that. The registration of a business now takes 4 hours. Incorporation now takes 24 hours. When we started this intervention, it used to take about 3-4 months, and there were 6 manual forms that you had to sign. We distilled that into one form, and we put that form online. We automated the process and completely shut down the manual process. A lot of leveraging on technology, automation, tax filing, tax payment also automated. I'm just trying to think. We have 55 agencies that we track at the PEBEC as priorities. We might now start tracking your regulators, depending on the discussion here today. But I see that your relationship is quite warm. So, but the essence is that the regulators that are the most public facing are the ones that we really track. And because MSMEs contribute just under 50% of Nigeria's GDP and employ over 80% of labor, they are real priority because they're actually the backbone of this economy. So with that, I'll stop. Thank you. Thank you for your interest.
Well, thank you very much for that. Interestingly, as you started speaking, I started getting more questions, but we've had to, say we have to put a peg on it, given that we're behind schedule. So we'll move on to other things now. But thank you very much. Thank you for taking our time to answer our questions. Thank you for the insights. And I'm sure that a lot of us would corner you before you go out for pictures and for more clarity and more questions. You know how we do, right? Thank you. So first of all, I would like to announce that there's a Toyota Highlander, a light blue Toyota Highlander, FKJ775DL. If you're in this room, you're actually blocking the gates to Radisson Blue. And we would like you to please go and move your car. Thank you. Just to announce it once again, FKJ775DL, light blue Toyota Highlander. I would also like to recognize Mr. Temitayo Akonde, who is a Deputy General Manager for LASA. He's here representing the MD of LASA. Please give him a round of applause. We also have Mr. Charles Uwanze, who is representing the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. So please give him a round of applause. Would also like to recognize Mr. Are Fatai Odeshile, who is the past president and trustee of ADVAN. He's also the chairman of Flute Distilleries Limited. A round of applause for him as well. So quickly, we'll go to a short address from an attorney who ADVAN has come. Who ADVAN has engaged on a couple of issues. His name is Barrister Jite Ogunye. He's here to give us a short address on constitutional place of regulation in Nigeria. Mr. Jite Ogunye is a lawyer and principal counsel at GT Ogunye Chambers in Lagos. He was called to bar in 1992 and he joined the law firm of Femi Falana, where he worked for 8 years and served as deputy head of chambers. In 2000, he established the GT Ogunye Chambers as general practice law firm that has conducted cases and continues to handle cases in all branches of law and in all tiers of the Nigerian judiciary. So please welcome Mr. GT Ogunye. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It's indeed my pleasure to be here. I'm happy to have a wonderful opportunity to meet with the galaxy, so to speak, of the advertising industry in Nigeria, both on the regulatory side and the practitioners themselves and the brands that do advertising work. I came in a little bit late and I was still opportuned, in spite of my default in this regard, to listen to the special advisor to the president, and I was very happy about his disposition, which is where I'm going to start this afternoon. He said just the last 5 minutes, which in my view encapsulated all that it come to say here, that the government is ready for a frank and candid discussion. I'm quoting her. And government is willing to learn from ADVAN. And I then added my own that, as a matter of reciprocity, ADVAN also must be willing to learn from government. And that collaboration works. And that government will listen without being defensive. And that the regulators and the advertising community should always engage. I read out that to set the tone of my short speech, because I've been asked to give a short speech. That usually we talked about having a democratic order, but oftentimes in a very reductionist way, we assume that democracy only entails periodic elections. If you ask a layman, now, what's the fundamental difference between a democratic government and a dictatorial government? We say, yes, the democracy will have elections. Soldier will not allow us to have elections. So people tend to think that this 4-year ritual is what it is about democracy. No, democracy is life. Democracy is perpetual dialogue. Democracy is about talking about problems that confront society, the personal level, confront society at the corporate level, and finding solutions to them. And this is what scholars have called democratic values. So if you're looking to find those democratic values only in the halls of our legislature or in the judiciary or in the executive branch of government, then you're making a mistake. So fora like this are very essential in enabling those who are concerned about a particular subject to express their concerns. And if they do not have concerns, to express those things that they believe are working and should be consolidated upon. I'm asked to focus on the role of government regulations in the ease of doing business in Nigeria. This theme has not always been with us. This whole idea of government regulating businesses and all that and all that. And it's a concept that developed over time in Nigeria. If you look at the Nigerian Constitution, you will see that in spite of the movement we've had in the polity along the path of having a free market economy, although that's a lot of debate, you still have in the Constitution provisions like having mixed economy, government engaging in economy directly throughout the period of the military rule. And so we had institutions to show many corporations created by government themselves. NNPC, for example, is one. And so the regulatory duty or remit of government or institutions, particularly as regards business, wasn't these focused in those days. And you could, put what I'm saying to test to find out whether, what I've said has some semblance of reality. And so over time, in the last 20 years or so, we've seen a number of things coming up on the side of government. We've not been static. We've had cell phone telephony, and so NCC has come. All these came, after the 1999 period and all that. And so a lot more is expected of the government in terms of regulation. However, regulation is not an end in itself. It's not just to ensure that government maintains law and order. It's not part of the law and order infrastructure, if you ask me. That government is enforcing, so it's regulating just because government want to control, or those institutions want to control. No, regulation of businesses is a means to an end. And that end, you should ask me, is to ensure that businesses grow and thrive for efficiency, optimal performance, value creation, for micro and macro growth. Because when businesses thrive and businesses grow, the economy as a whole also grow, and then the people see the results. In regulating, however, there is a discernible streak that we've identified in a number of laws and codes and provisions and regulations that we've encountered in a line of profession. There's a streak there where government comes across as over-regulating. About a week ago, NIDA, which is an agency that deals with the internet and all that technology, put forward a code of practice for interactive computer service platforms and internet intermediary. And I just want to use that as an example. The code is not in force yet, but there's a draft code. And we're called upon to have a discussion of the provisions of that draft code. And yet, in spite of the fact that we agree that there should be a code because of the problems that have surfaced in our society via the use of the internet and all the internet resources that we have, social media and so on and so forth. In spite of the fact that there's an agreement that we should have a code, people disagreed very sharply on what the code should contain. For example, the code in draft provides that if a user or an agency, the government should complain to a provider, a service provider, Facebook, whatever, that there is an offensive and unlawful publication. That publication must be put down within 24 hours. And the question that we posed, which I posed in the course of that interaction, is that, okay, assuming the person doesn't do that, what do you do? NIDA is not an enforcement agency. Or assuming the person disagrees with you that what is put up is not unlawful. You are not the one to decide what is unlawful. The law will categorize what is unlawful in the circumstances. And if there is some uncertainty, the court will do that. And at that forum, I then shared my view, a long-standing view, with the NIDA executives that were there, that were part of that forum. that this is the problem I've had with the NBC. And what's the problem? The NBC tells a radio station or a broadcast station, television, say that you're broadcasting something that is very offensive. So we'll shut you down. Or you have to pay a fine of 1 million naira. And they pay. They may invite a discussant to come on air, and for saying certain things, they penalize them. I say that, where do you have the power to impose, to be the accuser, the complainant, the prosecutor, the investigator, the prosecutor, the judge, and the executioner? Under the Constitution, why would you not rather go to court and, in spite of the dilatory nature of our court, obtain another expertise that they are broadcasting something? It's very dangerous to the society. It can cause instability. Court, give me another for 7 days so that we can shut them down. And within that 7 days, that place, that broadcast institution will come to court and say that what they are saying is offensive, it's not offensive. This is what it is. And the arbiter will then have a look at it and say, no, why do you want to shut them down on that basis? I'm saying this because they have a situation whereby those stations come to us. There are times we felt very strongly that we should go to court for them, or they want to go to court. But you know, they are regulators, the NBC code is there, and so on and so forth. And so I know it's a very touchy issue. I will speak about the ISOP code. Within the framework of my assertion that the end of regulation is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. It's to ensure that value is created, that businesses grow, and that there is fair play in the whole process. The ISOP rules, I've spoken about it before, and just 3 days ago or 4 days ago, totally unconnected with what you were doing here this morning, somebody then called me. I didn't know him. And he said, you know, sir, I want to know, is there a court action now against the ISOP rules by anybody that you know? Or did you go to court? And I said, who are you? He said, yo, I'm the marketing executive of one brand. And he mentioned it, I've forgotten. I'm sorry. And if I remember, I won't even, for confidentiality purposes, I may not disclose, but I've forgotten it, the person. And he said, look, we invited some agents to come and pitch for us. And of course, they came, and of course, you know that for reason of versatility, for, you know, creativity, for, you know, value addition, we want to have the best proposal that we can run by. And they came, we didn't have any contract. It was only an invitation to treat. He wasn't saying that way, but that's what it is in law. So there was no offer yet. Not to talk of acceptance. Not to talk of contract before consideration. And after the person said that, ISOP said that you must give me 1 million. ISOP, and that a number of them came like that, and they said that they needed to be paid that one. I said, these ISOP rules shouldn't be saying that. And so the way I will end this conversation is that I know that when rules are made by a people, an entity, a society, a government, it is difficult to accept that there are flaws and then be receptive to the idea of amending them. But you know, recent development in our country must teach us a lesson. It's a teachable moment. The Electoral Act. The National Assembly made the Electoral Act In their hurry, while they were making that act, they excluded themselves from electing themselves in their primaries as statutory delegates. Okay? And they rushed back to the president. Please, we have an emergency amendment. Sign into law. And the president looked the other way. And they couldn't participate in their own primaries. There is no law that is made, not to talk of rules, standard practice, codes, no law that is made that should be immune to amendment. That will say is sufficient. We've thought about everything. It is okay. It's infallible. There is no such law. Not any law regulating human affairs, because new things happen. People look at it in a different way. And by the way, talking about dialogue and the need to continue to engage, God, in the scriptures of virtually all our faiths, is omnipotent, is omniscient, is God, is incomparable and all that. But God was always engaging man that he made in constant dialogue. God was even engaging enemies in dialogue. Oh, you didn't know? Prophet Ayub, that Christians call Job, ran into a problem, not because he created a problem. God just wanted to use him to shine. He was the one who called the attention of Satan. Come, where are you moving? You are parabolating, moving up and down. That's how you do. Have you seen my servant? So good, impeccable, he's forthright. He was the one who called attention of Satan to Job. And Satan said, it's not because everything is good for him that is flexing. Pardon my street lingua. So let me test him. And you see, okay, go and test him. That means after Satan was driven away from heaven, as the scripture captured, God was still having a dialogue with Satan. And Satan was also having a dialogue with Jesus Christ, the Son of God at the point. Yes, you remember that part where he said, look, jump. His angels will carry you with their wings. You won't fall. So they were having a dialogue. So that means in this industry, both regulators and the must dialogue. More so when ADVAN members are the owners of their own brands. I was wondering, for example, and I was curious to know whether there's a statutory obligation to advertise through advertising agents. There's none. So if brands start being negative, when saying that all these regulations we are talking about, we even want to develop our own internal capacity in our brands to advertise, employ people, expand our advertising department, and directly we'll be advertising. We cut you out since you are the practitioners, so that your outcome can be regulating you. So where are you going to get? That's why we need collaboration. We need to listen to one another. We don't need to take one another for granted. Some of the provisions I've looked at, they will not pass muster when we are talking about the simple law of contract. Because contract basically is a negotiated agreement between two parties. That's what it is. And in my own line of business, and in the medical profession, as an example, the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria, or the NMA, will not tell a doctor, about is fees. They regulate medical ethics, not medical bills. In the legal profession, it's the same thing. Our rules of professionalism allow us to encourage us to conduct cases pro bono, publico, meaning in the interest of the public without collecting a dime. It also tells us that you can also take cases on a contingency fee payment arrangement. No cure, no pay. Yes, you have a cost of action, you have a right of action, but you have no money, I will go to court for you. So when we win, instead of paying me, say 10% of this amount, you pay me 40%. It allows us to do that. I've done it many times, and that's how I will end it. Many years ago, there was this notion that when we had the tyranny of NEPA, although the tyranny is still there all the same, that if NEPA cables should cause havoc and all that, and your appliances got destroyed, there's nothing you can do. You can't sue NEPA because in their law, there was a provision that were immune to any liability, however so caused. It was in their law. And a woman was in K2 and, reclining on her shelves, see mistress, and the NEPA cable fell off the pole and fell on her shop, and she was electrocuted. But she didn't die, but she was destroyed, so to speak. It was a miracle that she survived. She spent 9 months in the hospital. And so we went to court. And of course, NEPA came and said, no, you can't sue us and all that. We said, no. He said, the consumers, wires, and cable. This cable is not the consumer's cable. It's not that the consumer was staying at home and a wire got electrocuted that way. No, it was the street wire that fell on her. And we pursued that matter and we got remedy for her. And again, people say, before you could levy execution, who is going to pay you? There's Section 84 of the Sheriff and Civil Process Act that says that before you can recover any money against the government, the Attorney General must sign. So you sue the Attorney General on behalf of government. To recover money from the same government, the Attorney General must agree. If he doesn't agree, you cannot levy execution. I would say, okay, there's a way we're going to look at that. And then we went back to the court and said, there's a garnishee proceeding. And we used that garnishee to cover out the damages. That was a case that we did for 7 years. And it was on a contingency fee payment arrangement. The damages paid was much at the end of the day. Then the woman lived happily ever after, and we recovered a sizable sum of money. So thank you for listening to me. I'm saying that there can continue to be perpetual dialogue because the discussion is not over. It can't be over as long as we're alive. The discussion cannot be over.
Thank you very much. Wow. Even me, I was feeling hot during that presentation. And I was just looking across the room and saying, okay. So thank you very much for that. We'd like to go into the panel discussion immediately. We originally, sorry, hold on, please. We originally scheduled 40 minutes for that, but we would have to. So, sorry about that. Like I said, we had 40 minutes for the panel discussion, but we'll try and make sure that we cram that into 25, 30 minutes. So straight away, I would like to invite the panel discussants. First, I would like to welcome Dr. Lekon Fadolapo, who is the CEO and registrar of APCON. A resounding round of applause, please, because we all know the role that APCON plays in our industry. Thank you very much for coming, sir, and honoring our invitation. I would also like to invite Otega Ogra, who is the Executive Council member for ADVAN. Round of applause, please. We would also like to call back Barrister GT Ogunye, who is a principal officer at GT Ogunye Chambers. And finally, we would like to call on Mrs. Chioma Doze Nwana, who is the Deputy Director for NAFDAC. Please, a resounding round of applause as well. You people are not clapping for NAFDAC and APCON very well. I pity you. Me, I'm clapping so that when my application comes, you people are not clapping very well. Alrighty, that was just on a soft note. So we've designed this purposely because we know that we've had a keynote speaker and we've also had Mr. GT, who is a counsel and member of the Nigerian Bar Association, speak to us on various aspects of regulatory issues with our industry. So first of all, we would like to give first Dr. Lekon Fadolapo an opportunity to either comment on the keynote speech or response to Mr. GT. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me stand on the existing protocol. The special advisor to the president on the ease of doing business, my regards, and to everyone here, so that I'm not going to take much time. The issue being discussed here is more around ISOP. As in the recent proclamation by APCON, that is the Advertising Industry Standards of Practice. And we've had different fora, but I think for record purposes, I might need to give a brief understanding of this ISOP before we go into a detailed discussion. How did we come about ISOP? ISOP is a means, not an end, and was supposed to promote equity, fairness in the business of advertising. So many things have been said, and I really need to correct some impression. The last speaker was also saying that agencies and advertisers are not obliged to use agencies. I think we need to check the law as it is written. All organizations that engage in the business of advertising are supposed to be licensed by APCON. And under our licenses, it covers 4 sectoral groups. If you are into creative agency, if you are into media independent agency, if you are into experiential agency or media strategy, you are expected to obtain license from APCON. That being said, immediately after the COVID era, there was a directive from the federal government to all regulatory agencies to look inward at the benefit and inclusive growth policy for all the sectoral groups. I mean, their remit. Fortunately, that was the time I was coming in as the registrar of APCON. So we got the directive from the federal government, and they said, look, post-COVID, you need to look inward, you need to look how business is done and how we can improve on the business. I have been in this industry for quite some time, and I've served at different committees, but I never based my knowledge on my understanding of the industry. I was secretary of the Advertising Industry Reform Committee. I was member of HSG. So what I did was to move around the sectoral groups. Some people came to me, I went to some people, and we all sat down and we all agreed there's need for business improvement. After that, we wrote to all the sectoral groups, to ADVAN, to OAN, to BOM, to MPAN, to MIPAN, and everybody. And we constituted a committee and said, look at this industry, look at the business of advertising, and come up with recommendation on how we can improve this industry, so that I can go back to the honorable minister and explain to him, these are the issues we are looking at, and these are the best way we can do our business. The committee sent representatives, the sectoral group sent representatives, and they met for over 3 months. If I'm right, maybe 4 or 5 months. And they presented a report. The report captures different areas. 1, media rate. 2, credit policy. 3, engagement protocol. Disengagement process. And every other things like that. Now, when this was done, I called for a meeting with the committee. I sat down with them at Lola Hotel, and they presented all these reports to me. During that meeting, because before then, we have written to all the sectoral groups, send us your memorandum, and every one of them did. For example, when it came to the issue of credit policy, the brokers organizations were asking for prepayment. ADVAN was asking for 60 days. OAN people, if they are here, we also bear with them. They were asking for 30 days. And they did all the meetings. And when they came down with the report, we looked at the report. Number 1, on the media rate, they had recommendation. We took the recommendation and we went to the honorable minister. This is the document from the industry. They have sat down. And these are the proposals. 1, the issue of media rate. They all agreed that there should be media rate deregulation. Before then, there's a body that we call HASG. That's the S of advertising sectoral groups. The S of advertising sectoral groups determine to a reasonable extent media rate cards. However, the media organizations are calling for deregulation of media rate. Why? The foreign media practices, the foreign media doing business in Nigeria, their rates are not controlled. So the issue of media rate deregulation should be there. On payment policy, the recommendation of the committee was 60 days. And when we took all this recommendation back to the minister passed it to the legal department of the ministry. Myself and our legal department, we sat down with the ministry, the legal department of the ministry, and we went through this one by one. What we were told by the ministry, number 1, everything coming out must be in line with the Constitution of Nigeria. Number 2, must be within the mandate of APCON. Did our law give us this power? Number 3, it must be in the best interest of the public. Then it must not go against any government policy, existing government policy. So we sat down with the ministry. During that period, the proposal that was shared was 60 days credit policy. The director of legal services came back to us and said there's an existing document on this industry transaction which stipulates 45 days. Now, you can do another law within the same ministry and promulgate 60 days. They are not going to work. Number 2, what is the best international practices? In other markets in Africa, it is 45 days. After all that presentation, we all came back and I called a meeting of the committee again and told them, what did we have? They said there is an existing law for 45 days. We cannot send another law now on 60 days. 2, what is the best global practices? Most of the multinationals doing business in Nigeria, they also have offices in other climes. And what are the business practices in these climes? The same multinationals here do business in Kenya, they do 45 days. They do business in South Africa, they do 45 days. Now, why are we going to change this practice? So based on that, we came back and all these things came up and it was passed. When I finished with the committee, we went back to the minister and this was shared with all the sectoral groups. Now, what is the content of this ISOP? 1 is the media, 2 is the credit policy. As the special advisor to the president said, the ease of doing business 01 has to do with transparency and efficiency. Everything about advertising industry reform is on transparency and efficiency. We have the issue of disengagement protocol. Disengagement protocol has to do with how you fire your agency. You have a right to fire your agency. However, whenever you are firing your agency, do reconciliation. What is being owed? Who is being owed? I'm a fellow of ICANN. And I can tell you for free, if you are firing an auditor, both the incoming and the outgoing auditor must exchange conversation, must discuss. Is there any professional reason why you should not take this? If one company, I have on my desk in the office now more than 4 or 5 petitions, and each of these petitions in some cases is around 5 million. 500 million, 300 million. If one company is owing 4 agencies to 200 million, that means they are taking a value of over 1 billion out of the system. Don't forget that the agency operates within the SME sector of the economy, where we have both the nano, the micro, the small, and the medium. And whatever is done will impact on their business. So, on engagement policy, if you want to engage an agency, there's a procedure. You don't just call all the advertising agencies. And what does the ISOP say? If you want to engage an agency, call them to present your profile, their profile. So that is what we call profile presentation. After the profile presentation, you can go to meet and greet. Meet and greet involves you going to the agency and inspecting what the agency has on ground. However, if you are going to call for creative or strategic presentation, then you need to pay pitch fee. Pitch fee is not new in the industry. And most organizations that are involved in advertising understand the fact that pitch fee is what Upon set as pitch fee is 1 million, which is less than $2,000. In this same market, we have organizations that pay $4,000. It is best international standard. Again, we have the issue of remuneration stated in the ISOP. Remuneration as stated in there because a very senior practitioner called me and told me that they said your ISOP is demanding for 30% remuneration. And I said no. The problem is that most people that have spoken about this ISOP have not taken time to even read it. I've had the same conversation with ADVAN people. Remuneration model. ISOP recognize the 3 remuneration model that exist globally: the fee, the commission, and the hybrid. And ISOP stipulates that the clients can use any model. There is no part of ISOP that says agency must charge 30%. And understand one fact, that ISOP moderate business between the advertisers, agencies, and the media. in line with our mandate. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We're hoping to keep things short and brief, but thank you for providing the insight. I would like to ask Mr. Ortega Ogra to also share his views on the topic.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to say something. I don't think there's any advertiser in Nigeria who is against regulation. Regulation is good. But what people are saying is regulators should be facilitators of business, and attempts to be that are seen to be over-regulation would actually do much more to hurt the economy, hurt our businesses, and in effect hurt Nigeria. The Nigerian advertising sector is currently about 0.1% of our GDP, compared to South Africa, who is of the same GDP as Nigeria, but with 0.7%. So the question is, should regulators be looking at ways that would prevent advertisers and businesses from doing more business that can boost our economy, or putting bottlenecks in place, because that's how the ISOP seems, and with good reason, or putting bottlenecks in place that would prevent companies from actually increasing whatever amounts of money they're spending in advertising. It's also a globally known fact that for every single dollar you spend in advertising, it translates to about 7 times the amount in dollar terms. So if we're spending currently in Nigeria, I think it's about about 450 million USD. So imagine if we had the capacity with the regulator support to increase that to $1 billion USD. That's about 7 billion in addition to our economy and to our GDP. But we are seeing situations where regulators are not giving that chance for decent, fair, equitable conversations and partnerships with them. I remember when the conversations about ISOP started, all these different subsectors were called together to have inputs into it, and there was an agreement that before the final thing is pushed out, everyone will be called together to deliberate on the final document. That wasn't done. I know ADVAN came up with a position paper that wasn't recognized, that wasn't seen in the final thing that was sent to the minister for approval. And let's also understand something. It's a known fact that in law, a policy of an arm of government cannot take cognizance or supersede a law of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. There are laws governing contracts and the administration of contracts in Nigeria. So a framework from which is what ISOP should be, a guide and a framework of an arm or an agency of government, cannot be seen to supersede that. Our relationships with our agencies, first and foremost, are contractual relationships. Anything that goes beyond that, anything that seems to, put a shortcut in that process or a bottleneck in that process, our legal people will tell us is very illegal. So how do you want us to bridge that divide? We want the agencies to thrive. We're willing to work with the agencies. We want the regulators to be able to, help us manage that process. But it must be done on a platform of equity, trust, and fairness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fadipe. I know you want to answer. I know you want to, but I want to give Mrs. Choma an opportunity to give us, her opinion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Speaking from the NAFDAC point of view, okay, from the NAFDAC point of view, we know we have a desk or desks for regulating advertisement of products. However, we are advertisements of the products that NAFDAC control, which are food, drugs, cosmetics, and the likes. There are some other products that are being advertised, which is not a concern to NAFDAC. For instance, you see some, let me say, telephone, IT products being advertised. Those ones are not under our purview. So what we deal with mainly is our regulated products. So wherever the advertisements of our regulated products go, we also follow to see what is being said about those products, because at the point of registration, we know these products have identifiers or characteristics which are attributed to them. So in advertising these products, we also want to ensure that these attributes and characteristics, what's being portrayed there. And then concerning the issue at hand, what is being discussed, I was in the advertisement directorate for a bit, for a little over a year. Severally, I've seen some advertisements that are being put out there that we couldn't recognize, but when we ask, we are told that they got approval from APCON. So, in fact, I'm very delighted to be here because I will have some information to pass back home. And in that short period I was there, I've been waiting to see or, have an interaction with APCON. So when this meeting came up, I see it as a very good medium for that handshake to be done. Even though in the past, before I came there, I know that there are some communications between APCON and NAFDAC advertising decks, but lately I didn't see much of that. So, however, since we're here to dialogue, we'll still be talking more, to see how we will improve every process that has to improve businesses in Nigeria.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Fadipe would give you 2 minutes to make a quick rejoinder so that we can answer questions from the...
Number one, let me start with the South African example that you made. South Africa advertising contribution is far more than Nigeria. That is in nominal value. Because one of the problems we have as an industry is that we have not really been able to capture our real advertising spend. If you look at the UK model, whatever is being spent is multiplied by 10. How they arrive at the indices, what makes up that 10, as in the multiplier effect of the unit money spent. Now, we've not really been able to do that because what we have or measure in Nigeria as of today has to do more with the organized private sector. So we've not really been able to capture the real advertising industry spend. Now, talking about the ISOP as it relates to this, what has the ISOP said? If you do business, pay. The principle behind ISOP has to do with equity, fairness, and transparency. It has to do with equity, fairness, and transparency. I am not aware that there was a forum called or a promise made that whenever they have concluded the ISOP document, they will sit down and workshop it with sectoral group. What I was aware of and what we did was that after the committee finalized the document, we came back, we called a meeting of the committee members, and the document was shared with all the sectoral group. If your representative did not come back to you to share the document, it's a different ballgame. I cannot be held responsible for that. Now, if the position paper that was submitted, there is no way one sectoral group will have all its ones on that document. For example, ADVAN started pushing for maybe 60 days, 90 days thereabout. Owen was pushing for 30 days. Bond representative is there. They are pushing for prepayment of 60%. The committee sat down. I was not a member of the committee. The committee sat down, looked at this document, and said, okay, which way out? And the committee agreed and said, these are the things that we will do. They came back to say, the committee as an industry stakeholders have met. And these are the things they are saying. Now, talking about regulation and issuing framework, in line with best practices, and in line with Establishment Act. Let me give you an example. The Nigerian Insurance Commission, NICOM, regulates the insurance industry. Premium is determined by NICOM. And at a point, if you go and negotiate, they will tell you that before now, comprehensive insurance for car was 10% before they brought it down to 5%. Before now, you can get insurance policy on credit. You can get insurance. NICOM came up with cash and carry policy. If you did not pay, there will be no cover. That was the insurance policy. No payment, no cover. Now that was that was a cash and carry policy. Every regulator has a right to look into its industry and come up with a framework that will guide the business of that industry, which was exactly what we have done. However, in our own case, instead of sitting down in our office, CBN determines interest rate. Instead of sitting down in the comfort of our office to determine what is best business practices for the industry, we called all the stakeholders together. Sit down, look at the industry. What do you think, or where do you think we should intervene as a regulator? And they came up with a proposal. So we could not have done it better than that, than take the proposal. Meanwhile, there was a directive. Again, just looking at this, not even a directive. And if you can check it online. Immediately after the COVID era, some companies came together in Kenya and in UK, and in South Africa. And they said, we are not doing 45 days again. From now on, we want to be doing 30 days. And they signed MOU. And it became binding because they need to grow the SME sector. How do we grow the advertising industry if everything is done the way and the manner it has been done before? How do we grow or attract investment into the industry if everything, what have they said? You want to do a campaign for 15 days and you want to pay the owner of the media after 120 days. You want to do a campaign for 30 days and you want the agency or the media to come back and collect their money after 120 days. Is that equity? Is that fairness? You cannot sit down in an hall. You want to take something from the right and you want to use the left to take it away. The media owners are also stakeholders in this industry. And the fact that one sector pays the bill does not mean it should be strategic partnership. And there should be equity, fairness. When you take money or service, pay for the service. That is what ISOP has demanded for. And there was no time it has injured the ego or the business practices of one person or the other.
Sorry, hold on.
The moment you start to regulate payment cycles, that is over-regulation. We are capable as agents, as advertising, as companies advertise, and as businesses doing proper business in Nigeria to actually come down and self-regulate. There are, for every company that is owing or that's come to complain to you as a regulator that they're being owed, there are 10 other companies that pay even before service is given. So how do you factor those into these complaints, which you are now using to regulate the entire industry? I'm happy you mentioned CBN. I mean, I worked in the banking sector for a couple of years. The CBN or the insurance regulator would not come and give you fixed payment cycle dates, fixed rates and everything. They give you a guide upon which you as a company can use to guide yourself and make decisions that are in the best interest of your business. Advertising is not the primary business of anybody here. Advertising is not the primary business of any company in Nigeria. What we are, first and foremost, we are companies that have, you're affecting our whole supply chains when you do things like that. If I can sit down with my agency and come up with a solution and say, oh, let's agree, I want to pay you in 60 days based on my business model, based on what I do, and the agency agrees, that is okay. So what your regulation does, or what ISOP does, is straitjacket us and say, you must do it this way, put us in a chokehold, and in doing so, we cannot even, when our agencies give work that is not up to standards, we're already contractually bound to them and have no recourse, either with the regulation, which is filled with people from the advertising side and has only one person from the from advertisers. or anywhere else. So I mean, you're putting us as advertisers between the devil and the deep blue sea. We are ready to work with you. We want to work with you, but help us to work with you. Don't straitjacket us. That is the simple thing we're saying.
Nobody is jacketing you. No, sorry.
Yes,
Sorry,
Mr.
let me just.
Lekon, we're fast running out of time. I
No,
know I
because
saw
the issue
Miss-
he raised is very, very critical. Please just let me give me
1 minute, please.
Okay.
1 minute. One
Now,
minute.
you can't be talking of international standard on one leg and be talking of your own personal standard on the second leg. You started by saying in South Africa. Now, in this South Africa, ASA regulate advertising practice. And it's a standing principle in that South Africa that if you owe an agency 1 day after 45 days, it attracts interest. And you can also check again in Kenya. But you want to come to Nigeria, and you are now saying that the media houses and the agencies can be owed at your own. But when you want other things, you align with international
No,
standards.
Mr.
No,
Leko, I don't think that is the point he's making. But we've taken. Sorry, excuse me. We've taken. ISOP has taken basically the entire time, and we have questions for other regulatory bodies. And I don't think Mr. GT has been able to speak on anything. So I can give you 1 minute that we go to the president. Yes, that's what I want to do. So if Mr. GT can please, 1 minute, please, because we're fast running out of time. Thank you.
I'll try to make it brief as lawyers say. Now, I just want to speak generally, and this like an admonition. And I do not have any super esteemed pedestal to make this admonition. But all the same, I will utilize my opportunity of being a co-panelist here to say it. In one case decided by the Supreme Court many years ago, and it was Oputa JSC, a Justice of the Supreme Court, late now, blessed memory, that said that. That's case of Adesonya Motors and Adegoke Motors and Adesonya. And he said the Supreme Court is not supreme because it is infallible. Rather, it is infallible because it is supreme. Meaning that the Supreme Court is made up of men. And so there are decisions that are final forever in this land. Can indeed be given in error. But because it is the Supreme Court, that's why it appears as if they are. Sir, what have had you say over the ISOP is to project the infallibility of those rules. Sir, I beg of you, in the spirit of dialogue, which must be eternal. I've told you that dialogue is life. The right to freedom of expression is sacrosanct. We are discussing ISOP now, but you know that advertising is in exercise of the right to freedom of expression, which is a constitutional right. What ISOP rules is doing is constraining how that right is exercised. What we need to do in this industry, and I'm not a member of your industry, is that you continue to bring people together and talk on issues. If errors are made, admit them. If errors are not made, say so. And then progress can be made. What I'm begging this August meeting for is that you must take as sacred the need for a discussion. The need for a discussion. If all of us were to sit down here and be discussing, justifying it, we can spend hours here. I can give a lecture on all those provisions that you're talking about in the code. How you worked about that, the minister, the route he took, how everything was done and all that. And I went it this way many years ago. Just a minute.
A minute, sir.
In this Lagos, yes.
1 minute.
In this Lagos, a law was made for the magistrate courts in Nigeria. And that law, public hearing, everything was done, and the law was made by Fashola, who also is a lawyer. And in that law, there were provisions, very deleterious provisions, now dividing the judiciary of a state. Under that law, a magistrate court administrator was to be made to supervise the magistrate court. In their own thinking, they were growing the magistracy. They wanted to pump more money into it because it was the lowest bench. And so they thought that the magistracy was not growing, so they needed to carry out all those reforms. But essentially what they were doing was that they were then violating the cardinal provision of the Constitution that says that the judiciary of a state, as the third arm of government, is under the chief judge of that state, including magistrate in that state. So, and I'm making this disclosure, some of the judges said, we can't sue the government, but we have a problem in our hands, Mr. Ogunye. What are you going to do as a public interest litigant? And I went to court against the Lagos state government, and I had that law suspended. Now, the Attorney General of Lagos State and the others were angry, including Fashola. Yes, they were angry, and they are saying that, which was where I was going, they were saying that it's already a law. We had public hearing. We had all these things. We advertised it. Where were you? And I looked at the Attorney General. My duty as a lawyer is not to challenge intention. The power of the court for judicial review is not exercised over a bill in the legislature. So the legislature can do its work. But once it becomes a law, that law will be held up like this against the provision of the grown norm, which is the Constitution, and then says that line by line, is this one okay? If it is not okay, you use the blue pencil rule and strike it out. There is no immutable law or immutable
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. A round of applause. So it's very clear that the issue of ISOP is a burning one, and it's not something that we can fully discuss today, and that there will be, we would have to come together again as partners and work in unison to ensure that not only do we understand each other, but that we're able to move together as one unit. So I would say thank you very much to everybody. There's been a couple of questions, but I'd like the president to speak first, and then we'll go to some of the questions from the audience.
So thank you, everybody. I just want to be clear. This dialogue was not for ISOP. It's the burning issue. You could see the passion in the room. And every time I try to avoid ISOP conversations, I get back having to have ISOP conversations. For me, ISOP is very, very, very close to my heart. And I will say to you why. ISOP was started by O1. I was on that strategy section for ISOP. And I know how O1 started ISOP. When O1 could not get ISOP to work, they moved it to the regulator. So guys, I have history of ISOP in my blood. So when I talk about ISOP, I know what I'm talking about. So they called me and they said, you're a brand person. Come and sit with us. Let's have conversations. And I did. I've always had conversations with sectors and all that. They always call me and say, sit in the room, let's talk. O1 was having issues collecting their money and all that. So ISOP is very close to my heart when I say ISOP, because the conversation of ISOP, I want to avoid it every time because it ends up being payment. Let's be honest, being payment. So I want to apologize to everybody because the argument for ISOP, anytime I see journalists, ISOP. This was not meant to be an ISOP dialogue. No. It was about ease of doing business. I know, I feel the pain of everybody, and it's sometimes it's good to address your pain, and it's also good that doctor is around to see we are passionate about our profession. And we are also happy our regulators are here and they're also passionate about their job. So you see the passion in the room, and that's just what I wanted to say. It was not about ISOP, but ISOP it's a conversation, and it will always happen, and we'll have other conversations.
Thank you very much. Which is why I said that the issue of ISOP would have to come together again in unison and address the issues. I will take questions from the audience, but there's one question that has come. Actually, it's come from a couple of people, but I'm just going to summarize the question. And this question is to NAFDAC and partly to ADVAN. So the question is about the NAFDAC processes being made fit for the business of the future keep bearing in mind that the future is now. Businesses are very agile. The speed to market, we can't overemphasize that. Everybody needs to be fast on their feet. Um, what plans is NAFDAC making to transition from the physical carrying paper around to a more digital, approval process, submission and approval? One. Two, if I have APCON approval, right, shouldn't that be a basis to fast track my NAFDAC approval? I've put like 3-4 questions into one for you. So if you can help us shed more light on that.
Okay, thank you. I'll start with the last. Having APCON approval is a different thing from you have to get your NAFDAC approval before you advertise. However, having APCON approval, I know that usually, okay, you have.
What is the difference? Why do we have to get the two? Maybe we need to explain to everyone.
Well, for NAFDAC approval to advertise, what we do actually is that we tend to look at the information you intend to put out there concerning your product. Like I said earlier, every product has its own characteristics. So we expect that whatever you're saying about your product has to be in line with the product characteristics. So sometimes you see some things that are not what the product was approved for, being claimed as what the product does. So these are the things we intend to eliminate when we vet these products before we give approval for adverts. And once we've given the approval, we assume they can advertise. But obviously, APCON has some other requirements before they can go to the media. So once we have given approval for advertisement, we are okay with it and we feel they can go and advertise.
So the question is, if I have APCON approval already, which I think is the first thing we get before you go to NAFDAC, why shouldn't the APCON approval fast track the NAFDAC approval? And what are you doing as an organization to move it to a more digital and agile process?
In essence, we don't ask for APCON approval. We just look at your submission and give our own approval. So we do not have a requirement where we say, where is your APCON approval before you come to us? So once we've given you approval, we feel you can advertise, but obviously there is a requirement before they can go to the media by APCON, which is not part of what we do. All we do is regulate the product itself.
Okay. And the digital leg of the question?
Okay. Concerning digitizing most of our process, there are several things on ground already for our processes. However, since this is advertising forum, there was a time we held a stakeholders meeting trying to launch our advertisement processing platform. That was launched. We deployed it, and then we received some applications on that platform. But as is usual with some technology, we got some we had some issues. There are so many issues that clients complained about concerning that platform. We call it AdPro. So because of it, the developer has to go back to rework the platform. So that system was pulled down because there were so many issues. We couldn't do an end-to-end processing on it. So because of it, it was halted at that time, and the developer is still working to rectify it. It got to some point, we handpicked some of our clients to drop in some applications. So we have a handful of applicants who are even on our, we created a WhatsApp platform. We had some of those applicants in there. So we contact them, drop in your applications, we run it through, and wherever we get the hitch, the developer goes back to correct it. So it's still at that stage, but we have something in the pipeline coming up.
Okay, so it's in the developmental stage.
Yes.
Okay, so we've fast run out of time, so we'll take about 3 questions from the audience. So if you want to ask a question, we'll just note 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you.
Sorry, more of a contribution, and I'm very interested in this last question. And I'm also happy Madam is here, ease of doing business. If you get to issue of advertising or communication, I think APCON is in best position to more knowledgeable about that. So NAFDAC has been involved all along in product development, in approvals, in registration. When it comes to advertising, I'm aware, except the registrar, except it has changed, that NAFDAC is part of ASP, Advertising Standard Panel. The NAFDAC has a seat or 2 there. 3. So why would I have to go to NAFDAC for advertising approval when they are already on the seat of ASP? And if I'm going to make false claims or unsubstantiated feature, NAFDAC is fully on ground. So why do I need to go first to NAFDAC to obtain advert approval, then go to APCON when NAFDAC is already part of that panel? And when APCON is being trained, they are professionals as far as communication is concerned. And the communication is not just about claims. It goes beyond claim. It's about information. It's about passing some knowledge across. It's about getting some feedback. So that duplicity is what I think we need to look at. Why do we need to duplicate that when they are ready? Why is NAFDAC not taking its place in the panel? And if they do, how come we need to go back to it again? That's just my contribution.
Thank you very much. I'll give you some, let's take 2 more questions and then you can answer so we can close. Next person, please. Sorry. The microphone is coming to you. Here.
Thank you very much. And let me
After.
thank my people here who have been supporting me to make sure that at least I talk here. I really want to thank the president of ADVAN for the statement you made. It has watered down a lot of things. Because ordinarily, I'd wanted to say that the APCON registrar was brought here to sit on a very hot seat. And then the panel is lopsided. Because you see that from every
Sorry,
angle.
sir, can we ask that no questions on ISOP?
No. There should be. Because majorly today, even our MC is equally biased. Totally biased.
I am not. We're just trying to make sure that we cover a lot of things.
Yes. But you see, the fact of the matter is that I think the registrar deserves some, a round of applause. As a matter of fact, I thank the president of ADVAN for saying that ISOP is even in his heart. I really want to thank you, sir. Because let's look at it critically. And I think ADVAN should be able to come up with some position papers. I'm the executive secretary of BORN. Where in the ISOP that ADVAN has believed that they have not taken care of their recommendation or suggestion. Let the committee go back and look into it if it's acceptable. For example, advertising agencies are coming to ADVAN to take adverts. I can tell you that today, there are so many stations that advertising agencies are owing up to 500 million, 400 million for 2 years, for 3 years, claiming that they have not received this money from ADVAN. What level are we going to clarify all those lies? And that is exactly what APCON has been able to put together. If APCON is saying that there is a regulation that says 45 days, domicile in the ministry, and the committee agreed on 60 days, which one should prevail. I think APCON has done wonderfully well, no matter the situation. Because let's look at it critically. If you do a business and you are saying you are going to pay 120 days after, and we continue to lampoon our government, go and look at what they do in Syria, go and look at what they do in UK, and we don't want to do that they do somewhere else in Nigeria. He has asked the question, what is the position in South Africa? What is the position in Kenya? He has not requested for the position in China or in Russia. And you have not been able to say, no, the position in Kenya is different from what we are canvassing here. I think there's need for us. This is the third time I will say I thank you, Mr. President, because ordinarily I would have said that we should not even bring the issue of ISOP here at all. There should be a level. If we are talking about dialogue, let us go on dialogue within the House and resolve it. But the most important thing is that when you are increasing your rates of Coca-Cola, of whatever, did ADVAN take permission from anybody before you increase that rate? Why should then we say that broadcast station must take permission before they increase their own rate? It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So to me, sir, the APCON registrar, you have done wonderfully well. And for us in Bonn, we are totally in support of ISOP. But if there are gray areas, let's come back, talk about it, discuss it, and iron it out. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. The last speaker has expressed some of the sentiments I'd wanted to bring on board here. But for the intervention of the president of ADVAN, one would have suspected as an ambush here. And that is quite unfair, honestly speaking. We came here with the impression that we are going to be discussing the role of regulatory agencies in the ease of doing business. And we do know that any business transaction involves a number of parties. In the case of marketing communications, that's the advertiser, represented by ADVAN. That's the agency. That's the media. And so many other contracting parties. So if you're making it easy for one party and making it difficult for the other parties, I don't think that the objective of ease of business is achievable. From all obvious indications, and listening to the registrar, the ease of doing business, the ISOP document was meant to address the concerns of all the parties involved. And the complaint of ADVAN is that it should be let to have its business done easily while constraining the businesses of other parties. I don't think that is fair. And that's the sentiment that Bonn has also expressed. And talking about pitch fee, the example that was given by the lawyer, the document of ISOP makes clear that it is one fraction. So if somebody decides not to pay pitch fee, it's up to him not to involve agencies in a pitch. He can find other ways of engaging a consultant to do his business. So using it as an example, and a critical example in this presentation, again, is part of what I saw as an ambush. And that's not fair. So if we are going to dialogue, it will serve everybody if the outcome of that dialogue does not appear to be predetermined, as in this case it appears. So if we need to study and examine ISOP, we need to honestly talk to ourselves and look at the document and discuss the content and the context of the document, and not bring some other extraneous, factor. Some of the examples that the lawyer was given was actually very amazing. That you call somebody to a pitch and he says to you, you pay me. When you walk into a doctor's hospital and he says to you, my consulting 40, that is or whatever that he charges you eventually. So if you think that 40,000 is beyond you, you have the option of not talking to the doctor at all. Because the doctor, that problem is already same thing that advertising consultants do. By the time they do the pitch, they've offered you all the solutions. So it's up to you to just go and execute. So I don't see anything wrong with them. So that's a bad example of attacking the ISOP document.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, let me end it at this
Thank
point.
you very much, sir. So one more question at the back there. After his hands has, I know. Okay, so after him, you would go. I know it's really heated, but we also need to round up. So I'm trying.
Thank you very much.
But after him, you go. Then he would go.
My name is Kayode Molageshi. My comments really comes from the very first presentation from Dr. Oduwole, who basically mentioned that most of the initiatives that they have for the ease of doing business is actually targeted at the micro SMEs, who contribute about 50% of our GDP and employ about 80% of total employment in Nigeria, contributes 80%. I also want to take note of what the lawyer said, that the whole idea of regulation should be about promoting business growth. And I was very happy that he also mentioned fair play, which brings me down to the ISOP conversation that we are having. The industry, because he mentioned about dialogue and the need for dialogue. And I think the point that the ADVAN registrar was making was that there was extensive dialogue. There were two committees. One had to do with standard of operating practice, and the other one had to do with the code. And as somebody who was a member of the Code of Conduct Review Committee, I know the process that we went through. We had representation, from all sectoral groups, and there were discussions on every single, when doing the review, we went through every single page, article by article, discussed with views from all the sectoral we have already had extensive dialogue. The question is, where does it go? But the other point also is the fact that, as the president also said, I'm also aware that HESG, of which he is one, is also a member, is also discussing this thing further. But to just come to a conclusion, the whole point about ISOP is all about equity. And the sectoral bodies that were part of that process have extensively given feedback to ADVAN, to ADVAN in respect of what they feel about the business terms. That's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Dr. Jumoke Oduwole for some last words and feedback on some of the issues raised. Thank you. Please give her a round of applause.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I'd like to thank everybody, all of you, for your candor, for the honesty of the conversation. I think that if we have more honest dialogues like this, then there'll be more opportunity to move forward. Now, just looking at receiving an invitation and coming here today to speak about regulators and ease of doing business, it's always a thorny issue, and it's not unknown territory. By definition, I work with a number of regulators and a number of honorable ministers and across sectors. So you do have different times when industry players, of course, have their positions. You recall when I gave my keynote that I said that there are always two sides to a story. And I had already had my suspicions that this particular story has three sides. And indeed, the story has three sides. I've listened carefully to all that has been said and not said, bearing in mind that you permit me to say, as an outsider, even though I'm part of government, I have some level of independence in this regard because I do, by virtue of my position, stand as an ambassador for the private sector within government. Now, ISOP, very familiar to all of you, completely new to me, but I think it's a very good thing. I'm happy to hear about it. I'm happy to learn about it. And I would say, first of all, starting from home to APCON, Registrar CEO, I've listened carefully to your passionate explanations. I like the fact that you took the pains to speak and speak and speak to your stakeholders. I can see that it's not over. The stakeholder engagement is not over. There's still more. There's still more because you have a very strong support from one side, and it seems there's a lot of still remaining questioning or feeling unheard by another side. And being the regulator, you and me are in the middle. If as a regulator, one side is particularly happy and one side is particularly miserable, then the discussion is not over. That's my first point. Now, what do we do? Clearly, we need more engagement. We need to know more. I personally will take it upon myself. Thankfully, the person along with me is part of my legal cluster at the PEBEC Secretariat. We'll look at the document, we'll review it independently and do some research independently on what obtains elsewhere in similar climates to what we have here. And while we don't necessarily take global best practice, we look at how we can get global best fit for Nigeria. So for equity and for the growth of the industry, which is our primary concern, because remember, we're actually all on the same side. We're on the side of Nigeria, we're on the side of Nigerian economy, we're on the side of job creation, we're on the side of GDP, we're on the side of legacy of President Buhari's administration. So we're all on the same side. And that's Team Nigeria. So that's the starting point, that we're all on the same side. And with that, with the goodwill and the good faith that you've reposed in me by inviting me here, I'd be happy to. Thankfully, the line minister, Alhaji Lai, is a member of the PEBEC. So we'll definitely do some groundwork and then I'll discuss with the registrar CEO, and we'll see how we'll table this before the PEBEC as one of our reform areas. On the NAFDAC APCON synergy, the response wasn't quite there. If we're honest with ourselves, it's one government. And one thing that private sector has repeatedly commented about, and one thing that the PEBEC was indeed instituted to take care of, particularly with the Executive Order 1, is to make sure that private sector doesn't have to dance around from office to office to office to office, doing the exact same thing with the exact list of requirements and documentation. We've had a recurrent problem about turf wars and silos and sort of closure within the public and civil service on overlapping, and it's not peculiar to the regulators here, it's not peculiar to this industry. I can give you so many examples. I can give you example between NAFDAC and SON. I can give you example between NAFDAC and, or is it SON and Ministry of Industry, Trade and Weights and Measures. I can give you so many examples of silos and overlapping responsibilities down to the enabling legislations. So it's even something that goes beyond personalities. It goes right down to legislations that we have passed at the National Assembly that give agencies overlapping responsibilities. So how do we then live? How do we then function? How do we then grow this economy? At the PEBEC, the executive order looks at a situation where executively, administratively, agencies are asked to work collaboratively because, as we agreed from the beginning, collaboration works. So just even listening to the fact that NAFDAC has 3 representatives on APCON, I'm not even saying that NAFDAC should not do what NAFDAC needs to do, but you can do it back end collaboratively with APCON, and they know nothing about it. I think that private sector would not mind if you say instead of 3 days for the approval, it takes 1 week because APCON and NAFDAC need to do some back-end work, but they know nothing about it. They don't have to go from one office to another with documentation. I think that is the pain point for private sector, and we must address it. And the reason why is that it takes time, it increases costs, and it reduces transparency. So I think we have to look into that as well. And we also finally try to encourage automation. And when I hear of agencies talking about automation projects without timelines, without deadlines, without input from private sector to make sure that the automation being layered actually works. I'll give you an example. FIRS instituted an automation of, I think it was either the filing or the payment, I think it was the filing of taxes, and nobody was using it. And we wondered why. We really needed people to start paying taxes. Like Nigeria's revenue collection is one of the lowest in the world, and it's been a problem. So even corporates in the tax net that already pay taxes were having to pay manually, and it just wasn't very efficient. So FIRS automated this process, but no one was using it. So at our end, we had to speak with FIRS, and this is what we do, as you know. At least NAFDAC we worked with. APCON we haven't done anything with to date. But we went on a roadshow with FIRS, and we went to see a number of accounting firms in their offices to ask them why they were not using it. And they said, you know what? The automated process is more complicated than the manual process. So we're not going to use it. They then co-designed the automation. And today, manual process is like non-existent at FIRS. So the power of co-designing, and there's a lot of expertise in private sector. We at the PEBEC have benefited from, I keep saying it, collaboration works. And we've done this for a number of agencies, and we continue to have conversations with other MDAs to say, let's embrace this collaborative partnership your stakeholders can actually help you to help them, and we help each other, and we improve this economy for lives for 200 million people, because we all here are elite, but the jobs we create and the work we do make sure on both ends. I say this especially to government officials, that it is the services that we deliver and the excellence and transparency with which we do this that will make sure that businesses are staying in Nigeria and not going to Accra or Kigali. So we are Team Nigeria. We need each other, and we really just have to find a way to make it work. Thank you. So the next step, so I didn't just talk, is that I'll expect the outcome of this dialogue and the issues well tabulated, and then we'll take it from there, the dialogue and the discussion. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for
So thank you very much for a very fantastic closing remark. And I think that everybody, I mean, a lot of people actually in the room would find comfort, and we would be able to come to the table as a team, as one team, and continue to discuss and look for ways to take this collaboration to a higher level. I believe that's where we are, right? If you agree with me, please give all of us a resounding round of applause. So because of time, we won't be able to take a lot of questions. I know that a lot of people have questions, but we'll take two more questions. And then after this, we'll have goodwill message, and then we will close for the day. I do believe that even when we're done with the formal session, we can still engage each other, network, and ask the various questions that we need to ask. No, you've answered it, which is the NAFTA question. You want to make a statement?
Okay. From the question raised earlier, I don't really think there's any issue in our approval processes for advertising. NAFDAC should be the first point of call for advertising. I don't think there's any other regulatory body that regulates the products that NAFDAC regulates as per advertising. So the ideal thing should be that advertisement approval should come, and then APCON can continue, because NAFDAC regulates the product, and I should think that APCON regulates the practice of advertising. So I think when we are done with products, then we can carry on to the clients can now move on to APCON before they go to the medias to carry on their business. So in the forum where NAFDAC and APCON meets, which we'll take back home and see how that representation is done. Once NAFDAC approval is given, they can go on to APCON, and then the advertising agencies and all that continue their business from there. So I don't think there's really an issue. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think like we said, we're not going to finish that conversation here today. We'll still have to come together as a team, as one moving entity, and forge the path to progress. So we'll take two more questions and end it there.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Ambrose. I'm from NAFDAC. I just want to throw more light on this synergy between APCON and NAFDAC concerning advertisement. I think, with due respect, APCON and NAFDAC have different pathways. Regulated product mostly are science-based, and to be able to gain employment in NAFDAC as a regulatory officer, you have to be a scientific officer. I don't know the criteria that it takes for someone to be employed in APCON. So our processes are science-based, and we'll be mandated to regulate even the advertisement of those regulated products. Let me give an example. During COVID-19, somebody will now put up an advert and say, okay, take this milk, it contains some vitamins, it will boost your immunity to help you or prevent you from contacting COVID-19. And when we talk, they will say they've gotten approvals from APCON. And our job is to protect the public, not to be misled. And we have the scientific know-how to go through this document, vet them, make corrections, and give non-conformances to companies. So I think these are the challenges, and we won't stop. I think APCON deals with media houses most, and concerning maybe advertisement of media houses most. I don't know anyway. But as for NAFDAC, we protect the interests of the public by ensuring that all advertisement that comes to NAFDAC are well scrutinized based on what their characteristics of those products. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
It's quite a different topic. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oti Ukubenje, and I'll just speak quickly to my question. Deviate slightly from the discussions on APCON NAFDAC from a general regulatory perspective. I'll speak more on the digital side of things. In terms of the work that NIDA is doing in trying to work with digital platforms, and then APCON as well as NAFDAC also stepping in to try and regulate digital advertising and communications, or online advertising. Mine is more of a question in terms of what procedures or systems are both organizations putting in place to deal with the sheer scale of activities that happens in the digital space, in terms of the heavy inflow of content and advertising that goes on in that space. What systems are they putting in place to meet with that type of pressure? One. And then my second question is recent incidences of fines and warnings coming from both sides, both NAFDAC and APCON. Is there a way this is sort of tiered? Does it only affect large brands and organizations, or does it get to the SMEs and the micro? How is that currently managed to ensure that it's not a cherry picking situation based on who can pay the highest fine or something? Thank you.
So thank you very much for that question. We would like to give the panelists 1 minute each to either close out or answer some of these questions so that we can be done for the day. So forgive me if I've not come to you for your questions, but I believe we can discuss further after this formal proceeding. Thank you. You want to speak last? Okay. So we'll take it this way.
Okay. I want to attempt to answer the last speaker. It's not like a cherry picking venture. There are tariffs. If we give you a fine, it means there's a violation. And these tariffs, they are on the website, they are published. So it's based on it that these fines are given. It is not as you please that you issue the fines. And moreover, for violation mainly in advertisement is when you advertise without an approval. Or when an approval is given, you go outside the conditions under which that approval is given. You know, then you would have violated our regulations. So we expect that a fine should be given to you, but that is in line with what is approved in our tariff. So I will also add a closing note that NAFDAC is there to work with you, and we are open, we are receptive. Whatever complaint you have, we're very willing to listen and then try to solve your problems. We encourage everyone who deals with NAFDAC regulated products to come in, bring in your application via email, even though the platform is not working now, but the COVID has taught us that you can work from home. So we receive these applications now via mail. You load your documents in there. And then concerning the platform, in fact, one of the reasons why the platform is being worked on again is because the clients complain that it cannot take heavy loads because advertisement applications usually come with a lot of media, a lot of graphics and all that. So the portion given to the size allowed initially wasn't big enough. So part of it is to expand what the applicants are able to load on the platform. That's part of what's being worked on now.
Thank you very much. Mr. Otega Ogra.
Thank you very much, everyone, for waiting this long. I would like to state again that at ADVAN and as an advertiser, we believe that regulation is very important and key. We think regulation will help sanitize whatever industry it is applied to. However, we think there should be consensus. We think there should be collaboration. We think there should be proper stakeholder engagement in coming up with something that would not sound or look punitive, but would help
The issue of dialogue is very important. I've heard people say here that dialogue should not be perpetual. But if you listen carefully to the special advisor, his closing remark, he made that point. Look, if a broadcast organization is being owed 500 million by an advertiser and is not doing anything about it, that means he likes it. He likes it because there is a process under the rule of law for recovery of debts. And on the issue of sanctity of contract between two parties, we can debate it between now and eternity. Preeminence is given to two parties or three or more to agree on contracts that will bind them. We know there are illegal contracts which are outlawed by law. For example, contracts that are not conscionable, contract where two parties agree to commit an offense, where two parties are in pari delicto. Those contracts are excluded, but as to the contents of a contract, on payment, on everything, this is regulated by law, and we can discuss this, and I know that this is a passionate issue about how best we should have the industry grow, which I respect. Practitioners are here, advertisers are here, brand owners, all of you make up the industry, and you're talking about fairness and equity. I understand that, but I submit finally that these issues are issues that you continue to discuss so that you can have a synthesis.
Thank you very much, sir.
Let me start from where the lawyers, learned people, sir. Let me start from where the learned personality ends. I think, notwithstanding the fact that contracts are between two people, there are frameworks that guide contract, and contracts are situated within that framework. For example, if you are entering into a contract of financial relationship on insurance, it must comply with NICOM regulation. If you are going into the banking industry and you are entering into a contract with banks, CBN has provided a framework for that contract. ADVAN has not done anything outside that. What ADVAN has done is to provide a framework that contracts between individuals are always situated. We expect there is no contract between employer and employee, but federal government set minimum wage. So if you are going into a contract of employment with anybody, you must take cognizance of the minimum wage policy and guideline that was set by the federal government. What ADVAN has done by ISOP is to provide a regulatory framework that will guide the contract of advertisement, advertising, and marketing communications between players in the industry. That is very, very there. And we have done that in line with the Constitution of Nigeria, in line with our Establishment Act, and in line with the approval of the minister as stated in our law. Let me state here that the issue of NAFDAC, I will make a call to the DG of NAFDAC. We are within the government circle, and as a director general myself, I should be able to reach out to him. If this is becoming an issue, I'll take it up personally. I have never at any particular point had that conversation with him. I will link up with the Ministry of Health too, because I know we had a conversation with the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Health. If we need to involve everybody at this level, we'll talk to our own minister too, so that we can get this issue resolved. It's been becoming a recurring decimal. We have NAFDAC people on our board and every other thing. So I promise this meeting that I'll look into it now. I'll take it up personally. I'll reach out to NAFDAC on that. Then on the issue of the digital regulation, there are so many things that are happening in that space. Recently, if most of us are aware, the House of Rep passed a resolution requesting or directing ADVAN to take over the digital media space regulation as it affects advertising. We are reaching out to in that space, there are different players. There are the primary media, digital media space owners. There are the secondary digital media space owner, and those people are playing majorly in that space. Now, for the primary digital media space owner, we have the Facebook, we have the Google, and for the secondary, we have the influencers, the bloggers, and we need to bring everybody into one roof. The capacity building issue is there. The currency of the information is there, the time and everything. So what we have done now is to start even engaging them. We cannot work from on regulation without them opening their back end to us. If their back end is not open to APCON, there is no way. You cannot monitor Facebook using your phone. So they need to open their back end. And we cannot get that without a court judgment or a law. And so many things has to be put in. NIPDA has come up with their regulatory framework. We need to work with all the relevant sectoral group, the government agencies. So what we are doing now, we need to escalate. There was a directive from the Honorable Minister too. So, and we know what happened to Twitter. What they have said, one of the things we discovered, most of these primary digital media space owners, they don't have offices in Nigeria. So the first thing is, where do we start the engagement? So now that the federal government has directed that all of them must have offices in Nigeria, then within our geographical territory, we can hold them responsible. So we are doing so much in that space. On the final note, one of the few things I've discovered is that people have not even really taken time to read this ISOP document. Sometimes somebody called me and told me that this and I said, have you seen the document? He said no, but they say, I will plead with each and every caution. We are ready to sit down. We had a meeting with ADVAN recently, and if need be, we will always have meeting with people. We are not regulating to strangulate. We are not regulating because we need to be a regulator. And what led to ISOP was an industry engagement. We did not sit down in the comfort of our office and make proclamation. I want to plead with each and every one of us. Our office is open for dialogue. We will continue to engage. We will continue to have discussion with you. But we don't want a situation, because the principle of human rights is that where your right finish is where my right cannot infringe on your right. That is the truth. So we are trying to promote equity, fairness, and justice. We are not party to all these things, but we are just providing a framework so that there can be peace in the industry and we can grow the advertising industry. Thank you very much.
Sorry, sir. Can I ask if a copy of ISOP is online where anybody else can?
We don't have soft copy because of there was a directive on that, but we have copies, hard copy, 5,000 naira. Okay. If anybody is interested in getting a copy of ISOP, it's available 5,000 naira. You can call me. I will send it to you as soon as you pay today. It's 5,000 naira. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's not because we want to make money. Because of no, wait. Because of production. Okay, I will pay and give you one copy. Me,
Thank you very much.
I'll buy one copy for. Okay, I'll buy one copy for everybody here. Not on this side, but everybody on this side.
Please,
I'll buy one copy for them.
A resounding round of applause for our amazing panelists. Thank you very much. Thank you very much as you make your way to your seats. Thank you very much. So very quickly, I would like to call on Mr. Dayo Shobayo, who to give us a short goodwill message. And he's doing this on behalf of Dr. and Mrs. Lola Akonde, who is the Honorable Commissioner for Commerce, Industry, and Cooperatives. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to tender the unreserved apology of my Honorable Commissioner, Dr. Mrs. Lola Akonde, who is unavoidably absent as a result of other urgent state assignments. However, she said I should deliver a good message. I would have loved a situation whereby Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, but she left. However, she said Nigeria moved 39 places in ease of doing business as at 2020. Lagos play a pivotal role in that regard because most of those indicators used at the ease of doing business by World Bank Lagos is being used as a proxy. So we play a pivotal role. And in this regard, we have a role to play when it comes to ease of doing business in Nigeria, because most of the businesses resides in Lagos. And from our Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Cooperatives, we made some interventions in that regard, vis-a-vis infrastructure provisions, creation of enabling environments, institutionalization of Lagos Corporate Assembly, where issues and challenges, problems and challenges confronting the business sector, it's been personally handled by the Mr. Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. So on this note, I want to say that I want to commend ADVAN for this wonderful engagement, because I must say the engagement has broadened my horizon when it comes to advertising. I want to commend you. And however, I want to solicit for your cooperation towards the Lagos State government, because we are doing a lot. With your cooperation, we will do a lot. So, and at the same time, we are receptive to engagement. We are receptive to ideas, constructive ones. We will appreciate. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. We're going to be rounding up now, but I want to have just one word from one of our major partners that has been supportive of the association. I'd like to invite Dr. Adefemi. She's the CEO of TNT Television, to just give us a goodwill message before we round up for 1 minute. Thank you, Dr. Adefemi.
Thank you very much, everybody. It is a very great moment to be with you today, because I listened carefully from the angle of both the practitioners and the sectorial bodies representative. And I feel that it's not over until it is over. And we have decided to follow up with and support ADVAN and the member with our platform across the nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So thank you all, especially for those that stayed till the very end. I want to say a special thank you to the marketing director of Friesland Campina Wamco, Mr. Chris. A round of applause for him. I want to also say a big thank you to the president of ADVAN, Mr. Emmanuel Ajufo. A big round of applause for him. Thank you for staying till the end. For Mr. Tunji Adeyinka, who is the president of X-Man, a big thank you for him. And all our dignitaries, advertisers, and stakeholders, thank you for being part of the ADVAN Industry Dialogue 2022. Have a blessed and happy day.